Yeah, Perfect Plex Radio. We about to go live on them. Hey, Mr. Main Event, B-Dub, Mike Knoxxx. That's with 3 X's cause he's hardcore. Are y'all ready? I go by the name Fred Knoxxx. We about to give y'all something special. You ready? Let's go! At the Monday Night Raw, what you getting in? Perfect Plex Radio got
the Rick Rude type characters for the Dangerous Alliance. And Rob Van Dam was like, no way, dude, this guy's going to, this is what I want to do with Scott. I want to bring him in here and get him established as my friend because, he was one of the top over guys. And if we can do this right, he hasn't lost a match in almost 2 years. And Rob was like, dude, I want Scott to turn on me and cause me to lose my first match. That will get heat for him, and that will get him established. And that's how much of a friend Rob was to me then. And so to work with him was great, except for the fact that he's broken my nose twice. He's broken ribs. He's, this is how much I trusted him. I let him do anything in the world to me, and unfortunately, a lot of times it ended up being an injury. And I busted him up a few times too, but we had a match in the Hammerstein Ballroom where he dropped me in the guardrail in the first 2 minutes of the match. Cracked 2 ribs and bruised another, but we still went another 15 minutes because we were main event on the second night. And just the next thing you know, I'm in an ambulance after the match, going to the hospital in New York City, of all places. And about maybe 45 minutes after I'm in the emergency room, they're checking me up for X-rays. I come back from X-rays, and in my room is Rob, his wife Sonia, and Justin McCauley, who's a UFC fighter, who's a friend of theirs that came in. And the 3 of them were in the room, and they lived in California at the time too, so they sat there for a good 2-3 hours because I had to do a CAT scan, everything else, check my spleen because it was on that side. But they sat there, and I actually had to make them leave to go home so they didn't miss their flight. Because then Rob didn't want to leave me. But I was like, dude, you've already done this. You brought me my stuff. You did more than I expected you to. But that was how our friendship was. We trusted each other in the ring so much that we took so many risks to get each other's stuff over. So it was tremendous to work with Rob Van Dam.
Now, we have Maurice calling in from WCC Nation. Maurice, you're on with Scotty Riggs. Flock you and ask your question.
Yeah, what's going on, Scotty?
What's
going on, Scotty? Love to have a picture of Scott Studded, my man. All right, got to ask you. Now, I had to think about this very carefully because weren't you the very first person to take the Van Terminator from Rob?
Actually, on pay-per-view, yes. He'd actually, Amish Roadkill, I think he had tried it in a match with him. Didn't like the way he did it. But we actually did it in Wichita, Kansas, one of the first times we'd ever been out there. Me and Rob were actually wrestling each other. Rob was like, dude, you mind me trying this? I was like, dude, heck no, I don't mind at all. Next thing you know, I got a broken nose. Lights go out for a second, big black flashlight, boom. Open my eyes, I see number red because my face is bleeding. Steve Carino, Jack Victory, and somebody else, can't remember who it was. Maybe the jury came down to interfere in the match because they were watching my back, saw what happened. I crawled out, blood just pouring from my nose. But on the pay-per-view, I knew to protect my face, so I put my arm up in front of my face and said, hey, if anything gets broken, it's going to be my arm. It won't be my nose again. But on pay-per-view, taking that was the first time that it was actually had a name and a move that he had designed to do. And the worst way I ever saw it stolen was to see Shane McMahon do that to his dad with a trash can, I think it was, on some or something they did. And then they would not allow Rob to use it because Shane used it. And Rob made it. He developed the move. And they would not let him use it in WWE. And so that was where I sat back and went, man, that's how politically wrong they are at times. We got to create something. You steal it from them, and because you're the boss's son, you can't use it anymore. You created it. But, the Van Terminator was definitely a killer move. I took it a couple of times, and the first time it did break my nose. And so learn from that part up how to protect myself a little better.
Okay, now we have another call coming in. This is Spot Face. See, right here on Perfect Plex Talk Radio, Scotty, we got nicknames. So this is Spot Face's own. He's calling in to check out. I got a question for you.
Oh, boy.
Spot, you're on with
Riggs.
Scotty Riggs.
What's
Mr.
up?
Riggs, how you doing?
Doing
Two
good,
questions.
man.
One, when you originally was pitched with the flock angle, what was the booker's direction for you guys?
Basically, it was Raven. His whole idea was to get me to be a part of the flock, but he goes, I don't want. He was almost like wanting to make me a Tommy Dreamer persona, the babyface before I joined. A guy that battled him until he basically beat me to join the flock. Actually, in a sense, I was fighting my way into the flock, and I was the only one to do that. Everybody else just kind of joined, you know. Kidman showed up when Stevie Richards left after I actually had a match with him in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and beat him up a little bit, and he left the very next day. Quit WCW, went somewhere else. But, you know, Stevie was always there. He had one match with Raven, the next thing you know, he was part of it. Kidman took his spot. Perry kind of was there. Hammer just came in. Sick Boy, Lodi, all those guys were there. I was actually the only guy to fight my way into it. So that was kind of a cool way to be remembered part of that. So what's your other question?
Okay, my other question is, how do you feel, being that you are, I want to say, a tag team specialist, how do you feel with the current state of tag team wrestling that's televised?
There is no tag team wrestling anymore. To be honest with you, TNA does, you know, they kind of have some tag teams, but there is no tag team wrestling anymore. I mean, the last greatest team that you'll probably ever remember would be the Road Warriors. Animal and Hawk. I mean, Animal's a great guy. I love him to death. Hawk I was one of the few guys that get to call him Mikey. And he always called me Scooter, so I had a great relationship with him. But my respect for those guys, they were a tag team that never split up and fought each other. They split up, but they never, you know, because of Animal's back issue and stuff like that. But when you come down to it, they were the last really true tag team that stayed together. Everybody else was just a combination of people put together. You had the Steiner brothers, you had Gordy and Williams, you had, you know, just guys of that sort that were put together. You had, you know, now they'll put Swagger and Ziggler together, and Ziggler's a great heel by himself. He doesn't need to be put with Swagger. Or you got, you know, James Storm and Bobby Roode made a great tag team as Beer Money. You know what I'm saying? They were one of the last good tag teams. But now they're split up and fighting each other. So for a tag team to stay together and be together forever, in a sense, that's what means tag team wrestling. Nowadays, Vince thinks it's a waste of time, so he doesn't do it. He puts everybody together. He'll do that gimmick where, what do you do? Cena's facing The Rock at, you know, somebody else, and somebody's facing somebody, so he'll put Cena and The Rock together as a tag team, you know, and you know it's coming. He's done it so often now. And then he'll put the other two guys that are facing each other as a tag team, and they got to work together for the night. And, you know, and you know, this is, and you always hear Michael Cole, this is a historic presidential thing, kind of like Cerrone used to do. The greatest nitro ever, you know. You can't have the greatest nitro ever every week, you know, or the greatest, you know. I can't believe they got the Cena and The Rock tag team together. You know, it's just unprecedented. Dude, they do it every time. So, you know, wrestling pretty much, tag team wrestling pretty much died off, you know, in the 90s, late 90s when Vince took things over and he really split things up. And, you know, he just decided that tag team wrestling was boring. And there's actually a huge science to it that you can actually draw a crowd into it. And actually back, dude, it's huge. I mean, that's why wrestling used to be, your semi-main event was the tag team championship, you know, back in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. Then your main event was the world championship or the, you know, the U.S. championship or whatever. But that semi-main was always the tag match. Because that had its own chemistry, its own story, its own way of of putting you on the edge of your seat. But now, today, it doesn't exist.
Well, Mr. Riggs, I want to know one thing. Every wrestler, they say the wrestlers sometimes can be the biggest marks themselves. And, you know, we've had Shad Gaspard on here, and he's indicated the time when he walked in the locker room and he really marked out when he saw The Rock. Do you have a personal mark-out moment that you can remember when you first walked into, whether it was the WCW locker room or ECW locker room?
Wow. Probably, God, you kind of caught me a little off guard with that one. Probably the first time I met Stinger.
Okay.
I became such great friends with him. Long story short, it was 93, and, you know, I had just moved from where I went to school at West Georgia. I just moved to Marietta, and we didn't have a place to live yet. I had me and my dog, and we were actually living in my Blazer, in my truck, and I had parked right in a parking deck, you know, in the bottom part of the deck that stayed dark, right next to where Luger and Sting's Made Event Fitness was in Marietta, right up to 120 Loop, and had actually, you know, stayed there a couple nights until I met a few people at the gym and found a place to stay. But I told Stinger that story, and Stinger was like, dude, why didn't you ask me, Shaq? He goes, I would have done whatever I could for you. I said, we didn't even know each other then. I said, I appreciate the thing, but you know, now you definitely become a good friend. But yeah, the first time that I actually got to travel with him and Lex and Marcus, because me and Marcus were a tag team, and Marcus was great friends with Stinger. They had been traveling together already. Lex had just come in for the first Nitro ever in Minneapolis, you know, and him and Stinger were such good buddies, and here I was, the rookie, traveling with Lex, Sting, Marcus, and I'm driving the car, and I got Stinger sitting next to me and Lex in the back telling me, kid, you need to speed up or you need to do this, and then he just rivered me trying to poke me, poke me, see if I had thick skin to take it. And Marcus is just being Marcus. He was just being the fun, goofy guy that he always was. And Stinger's like trying to stand up for me, going, "Oh, come on, Lex. Scott's a great. Scott's driving perfectly. No, he's not. He sucks. He's right, you know."